everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be talking about Opus. So this movie opened the same weekend as Black Bag, and I'd seen the trailer for this movie and it just seemed very, very weird. Another A24 film, and from the trailer you kind of get a gist that this is probably going to be about a cult, so I was very intrigued to see what this was all about. So let's dive into this movie. So Opus, I didn't look up before watching this of what Opus means, but looking it up, it essentially means work, or it can mean a great work of art. And art is a big piece into this. So this movie follows a handful of journalists that get invited to a legendary pop icon who essentially kind of vanished after releasing countless albums. He disappeared, and all of a sudden he's coming back releasing a new album and inviting random people to come to his compound out in the desert to kind of have an experience. And a lot of this movie in terms of art, in which you get various arts, I guess really with this movie, art is such a big subject because you're getting music, you're getting paintings, you're getting plays, and then journalists and writing is such a big piece of this movie because our main character, who is played by Ayo Edebiri, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. She is an upcoming journalist. She's got a job. She's written a few pieces that kind of got her into this position, but right now she is looking for a way to basically get the limelight. She writes articles that she's not super passionate about, but she really wants to write a piece that's more of a front-facing story to get her name out there and kind of grow her brand. And that's where a lot of conflict comes, is she does get invited to this compound along with her employer, who is one of those of like, I run the shots, you're gonna take notes, you're just gonna give me those notes, I'm gonna write the article, so just know that you're here with me enjoying this experience, but at the end of the day, the article is basically gonna be under my name, even though you're doing all the work for me. And then also part of this cast, we also have John Malkovich, and he is definitely the standout. He portrays this pop icon, so it's quite fascinating to see him as this musician, performer, and just the things that he's doing as part of the experience. And going into this movie, especially if you've seen the trailer, like you'll kind of know like, okay, this is definitely more of a cult-based movie. And even the characters themselves, they kind of stop at one point and they're just like, is this a cult? And they're like, yeah, it's a cult, but let's kind of see like what happens. And then that's where I think some of this movie kind of has this downplay of that what happens next, because so much of this movie does lean into other works, whether it's like documentaries or other movies. And look, yes, most movies, if not all, kind of are inspired from other works of art, and that's fine. But when it leans a little bit too heavy into things where that's all you're thinking about, it does hinder from this experience. Because if you look at just the general fascination of these documentaries, whether they're around like cults or following certain icons, I mean, there's so many that you can find now on like MACE or Netflix or any of these streaming services, like just that heightened awareness of those leads you into like kind of having expectations with this, because this movie does set itself up to where you're leaning towards one particular event that you think is going to happen. Now, there are twists and turns in this movie, which was pleasant to see, but even once we get into those, I initially think of other movies where I'm like, oh, this is like the same twist as like this other movie. And it's just such a fascinating thing, because these main two people that we're following, like their performances are really, really good. And it keeps you engaged with them, that you want to see what's going to happen. But there is that predictability factor into it. And it's like, as you know, you're kind of peeling the onion to see like what's going to happen, there are moments where it doesn't really amp up the thriller side of this movie. Like if you look at this as more of a thriller, it's not so much of a horror movie, but those moments definitely lack, because it's really building up to once you get to those last like 15-20 minutes, and then it's like doesn't really land right there, because you've got so much buildup of like following these different journalists and understanding like how they know one another, how they're connected to this artist, and just that backstory, that it just kind of like you expect something wild to happen, but not so much does. Going into some other characters, a big part of this is that when we're in this cult, everyone's given this basket of various things in which they get a book. And Ariel, who's the main character that we're following, the journalist, she seems to be the only one that's read this book, so she's really diving into this cult and these people which call themselves levelists. So like she's asking all these questions of like, are you the founder of this cult, or like where did it start from, and you know, why are these people here and what brought them here, and you're just trying to understand like, you know, the meaning behind like why these things are happening and what's going on, because the levelists basically are like stuck to these guests like glue. They don't let them leave their sight. They're always watching them. They're always following them, whether they're like going on a run, eating a meal. Like everyone is there together, and they're all seem to be there just to worship this musician, which kind of goes into the other side of the story of like just the general fandom, or how we idolize, like whether it's like any kind of celebrity, whether it's a musician or an actor or director or artist or like whatever, like, you know, that definitely is a big play in this, and you can see that, as well as like once you get into other things of just general like fame of like, who am I in this grand scheme of things in this world, like where do I stand in terms of like, you know, being like the CEO of something versus bottom of the totem pole. So I think the subject matter is quite fascinating, and like you can get the gist of what they're doing. I just think this movie fails in the overall execution of things. It would have been great to see this kind of more of a thriller and adding a little bit more crazy factors, because the beginning of this movie, this definitely feels like a WTF movie. Like you don't really know what you're watching, and the answers that you're getting and the things that you're seeing, like none of it really makes complete sense right away until you get to these last like 5-10 minutes when everything's kind of piecing together, and then it's like, okay, like this makes total sense now, and now it gives me more things to think about and really kind of reflect on. Like really, it's like, you know, you can see that the you know, the director and the writer, like they're wanting, you know, to hint to things that are going on in the world today, but I just wish the execution was just a little bit better. That's my only nitpicky thing. So Opus, a pretty strange, bizarre movie following journalists that are being sent to a compound to be part of this experience from a musician that's releasing a new album, but also kind of introducing them into his cult following. Such a strange movie that, while it does have its twists and turns, it just doesn't land everything perfectly. The writing is okay. I think the acting, and especially from John Malkovich, is what really elevates this and keeps you intrigued, because he just kind of is the show stealer, and you know, he just eats up the camera any chance that he gets. But after that, I mean, it doesn't leave too much. Like you can kind of see where this is going once you get past like some of the big events. So I would say this almost could be potentially a more disappointing watch this year than an exciting one. And it sucks, because like if they would have like leaned more into the thrillers and kind of changed some of the things and added more mystery to it, this could have been a really, really cool watch. If you saw Opus, let me know what you think in the comments. Are you a fan? Like, are you into these kind of movies, or are you just a general fan of like any of the documentaries around like cults or like the celebrity stuff? Like, let me know. If you watched any, let me know in the comments. I've definitely checked out a few of them. Open to checking out more, because it is intriguing just to see like how these things happen when you hear about them through social. But always looking for interesting watches. Thank you so much again for stopping by. Be sure to like and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel out so much. I'll be back again with more reviews. We'll see you soon.